There we
How's
go.
that? Perfect.
That's the money shot right there. So bear with me. Are you cool with if I record video?
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Okay.
As long as it works. My Wi-Fi is not the greatest, so
So I always have to turn my work computer off. I turn the Wi-Fi on my phone off.
yeah, I've got.
I've never messed with the volume within Zoom, and I always have to edit it later. And then I realized today I was doing something. I'm like, you know what? It's way down. I should turn this up. We turn this up a bit. I also didn't put my tooth in. Hope that doesn't bother you.
I don't give a shit, man. You're good.
Make me talk with a lisp, and I don't. And sometimes when I'm recording, like if I listen back to a recording, I don't hear it. But
Mm-hmm.
oh,
You know it's there.
yeah, it's annoying. All right. So I don't have my glasses on either. I don't have an agenda or anything.
Okay.
Ideally, I would just like to talk and get to know you as a person and your life and your story and kind of who you are and what you're about and how that parlays into hunting, obviously. But I don't the whole reason that I'm doing this podcast is I want to get to know different people in the industry in and around me or sort of around the country and just kind of get to know people because I was telling my wife earlier, I'm like, it's the same 10 people on every podcast.
Oh, I get it, man. I get it.
I love a lot of those guys. I think they're great. I love listening to them because frequently they'll drop other new little nuggets that maybe I didn't hear last time. But
Right. Yeah.
there's a ton of guys and that just I don't think get enough attention and I'd like to shed a light on some guys who are great hunters and great people and just kind of see if I enjoy it. And so far I have.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out, man. I really do.
Of course, it's my pleasure. And so I will frequently kind of like scroll through my Instagram because that's really how I meet people in this industry, so to speak, is Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll just kind of scroll and be like, oh man, I should ask so and so, or I should ask so and so. And I kept seeing your Instagram name like at the top of my either notifications or something. And so I'm like, you know what? That's a name that I keep forgetting to ask. And so you had just either liked maybe one of my reels, like a clip of one of the videos that we're doing here. So here we are.
Perfect.
Well, again, I appreciate you taking some time. I'm gonna shut my mouth for a second. Oh, is there anything you don't want to talk about?
I'm an open book, man. Whatever you want to talk about, I'm cool to talk about anything.
Okay. It won't be anything crazy. I just, you never know if someone doesn't want to talk about something. So I will.
Good.
Cool. All right. I'm going to be quiet for just a second and then I'm going to do just a quick little introduction and then we'll go.
Sounds good.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Angel Road Outdoors, the podcast. This is episode 31. I am your host, Brett, and I am joined tonight by a stranger, and his name is Cody Kelly. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, of course. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
I mean, it's not like a crazy, unique name that I really could. I mean, I could screw it up, but I didn't. So I'm really proud of myself. So again, thanks for joining me. Why don't you? So I like to do this on the front end so that people don't skip through it at the end. Why don't you tell a little bit about yourself, your family life, what you do for a living, and then maybe where people can follow along on your journey.
Perfect. So my name, like you said, is Cody Kelly. I live in southeastern Ohio. I'm 32 years old. I work at the local sheriff's office here in Muskingum County. Got two little girls. One just turned 2 back in April, and I had my second daughter September of 23. So we're pretty busy with our two girls. Yeah, and that's it. As far as where you can find me and my stuff at on Instagram, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not very good with technology, and my Instagram handle, it's something like C Kelly 6028 or something crazy like that. I don't know.
It
Maybe
is.
you can help me out with
It
that.
is something like that, and I'll see if I can figure it out for you.
Perfect.
It is C Kelly underscore S28.
That's what it is.
There we go. That's how you can follow along. And I was laughing so my phone wouldn't unlock fast enough. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been that little pause there.
Right. Now, I do have Facebook. As far as hunting stuff, I usually mainly just keep that with keeping up with friends, family, things like that. I don't post a whole lot on there. So,
Why do you think that is?
I really don't have a good answer, I guess. I don't know.
Because it's not just you, it's me, and it's a lot of people. We do not utilize Facebook for sort of what we are talking about today and what we are passionate about. And I don't know, because obviously Meta is the parent company of Facebook and Instagram and Threads and probably a plethora of other things. But the majority of people like you and I do not use Facebook for this. And I was just curious if you had some magic answer.
I don't. I don't lie. I just don't post on Facebook much. I'll share some stuff, comment on forums, and read stuff like that, but just don't post a whole lot on Facebook, really.
Do you is it, I think you said this, but it just, correct me if I'm wrong. It's primarily like family stuff on Facebook.
Yeah, for the most part, I'll share a bunch of stuff with my kids and stuff like that on there.
Does your family sort of live the same, hunting lifestyle that you live, or are you kind of a lone wolf, if you will?
I mean, my dad, my stepdad, both my grandfathers, I was kind of raised in a hunting family, I guess. But none of them are really, I guess, quite as wrapped up in it as I am at this point. I started hunting at a young age, like I said, with my grandpa. Killed my first buck during youth season with a gun with my dad. I was 12 years old. So I was kind of brought up hunting, but not more of in a traditional sense than kind of what it is like now, I guess.
So it's not like if you posted, your big buck kill with the blood oozing out of its nostrils and an open wound that the family would disown you or anything.
Oh no, absolutely not. No, nothing like that.
Huh. It's a curious phenomenon that I just mentioned where Facebook isn't really used to promote it. And maybe, I will say the generational gap, like there's a generation of people who uses Facebook as sort of their primary social media, and that generation is older than you and I think.
Yeah.
It didn't start that way. Okay, 'cause I remember as a younger kid, I say that like early 20s, I remember where Facebook was like just college kids. Like you had to have a college email address to have a Facebook account. And I feel like it is flipped completely 180. Like it's all grandmas and grandpas using it now for the most part.
No, you're right. I remember back in high school. I remember me and a bunch of my friends had Facebook, and my mom got Facebook, and it was like the weirdest thing ever to me. I was like, why in the hell does my mom have Facebook? And now that's what it is, I guess. I don't know.
You're like, oh well, ruin that. Moving on.
Yep.
What's that MySpace login?
Yeah.
I wish MySpace would come back, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you use MySpace?
I had MySpace. There's a couple others too that I forget. There was one with an X.
I don't know that one, but I remember you could pick like your top friends and you could put them on your wall.
Yep.
And you could have a little music player so that your favorite song of the week, you could like your friends visit and be like, oh, listen to Brett. He's so emo. Hell yeah. I would totally start my MySpace again. I just don't remember. I don't have the email address anymore that I started it with. And there's no chance that I remember a password to log into MySpace.
Obviously, I'm not going to. I can't even remember my Instagram handle. So,
well, we won't hold that against you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So, I'm really intrigued by your working with the sheriff's office. Were you always intentional on going into law enforcement?
No, not really. So out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My mom worked at a college somewhat locally to here. And about a semester and a half into that, I realized that college was not my thing at all. I had a buddy that was going through the police academy, and I learned that if you got into law enforcement, you didn't necessarily have to go to college. So I went through to a community college here for a little bit until I was old enough to get a job in the law enforcement field. I started working at a juvenile detention center and then worked at an adult prison for a couple of years and then went to the sheriff's office.
And are you loving it?
It has its moments. It has its moments.
I mean, the fact that you had to think about it, I mean, that says it all right there. Like, I mean, you don't have to love, not everybody has to love their job. I was just curious.
No, I got a pretty sweet gig right now. I'm a part of a multi-agency joint drug task force, so it's more of I don't have to deal with a bunch of the bullshit.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Just drugs, and that's about it. So
yeah. So do you have a very flexible schedule, would you say?
yes, yeah, it's pretty flexible.
And do you think that parlays into your, successes or your passion for hunting?
Yeah, it does. They give us probably more time off than they should, to be honest with you.
Really? Well, I will edit that out. We don't want anybody. Little marker here. No. Well, that's good. I mean, I have noticed there are a lot of, we mentioned in the beginning that there's a lot of the same people that you hear on podcasts very frequently. And that's a great thing. I think there's a lot of excellent minds in the industry out there sharing with people. And there's a lot of similarities with professions as well. And I don't want to say that, you cannot be successful if you work a traditional 9 to 5, because you can. You absolutely can. There's lots of people that do it. But I will say there is a huge correlation between people who have very flexible schedules, which, obviously parlays into scouting in the off season and your ability to take obscure times during the week off to hunt during hunting season.
Yeah.
Law enforcement, self-employment. I work for a large company, but I work at home. I noticed there's a lot of electricians in the trade as well. If someone said to you, you have to give up law enforcement or hunting, what would you choose?
Well, unfortunately, I'd probably have to choose hunting. Just because, if it was like if I had to choose between the two, that's the only way. It's really the only thing I've done.
Okay.
I'm 32 years old. I don't know that I could really. Be tough for me to find something to help support my family. It's obviously tricky. Hunting, and you want to do it for me, so
yeah. Not at this stage. It's hard to figure out. Believe me, if you can figure out a way to support a family, a growing family, as a hunter, I am all ears, because I would love to figure out how to do that. That's impressive. I mean, it's good moral character when you can say to yourself, you know what, I love hunting, but I would absolutely give it up to support my family. And that's so amazing. Does your wife do anything in the outdoors?
I mean, so her and I have been together now for 5, going on 6 years.
Okay.
Prior to having our first daughter, I'd take her turkey hunting with me. We went bow hunting a couple times, got her a crossbow. But now she kind of holds the fort down whenever I'm out doing my thing. So
a real gift.
I'll get her back in the woods eventually.
Good.
If one of my daughters don't beat her to it.
Yeah. How old are your kids?
Like I said, my oldest just turned 2 in April. And then in last year, 23, we had our second daughter in September.
Well, congratulations again, man. That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
Daughters are very special. And I have 2 daughters myself. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old daughter. And, it's such a gift being a girl dad. It really is. And I hope that you, appreciate that. And I look forward to following along as those girls grow up with you, and maybe you can get them in the woods as well. My oldest is not interested.
Hey, if they're not interested, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to force them to do something they don't want, but.
Well, being in Ohio, I have some very specific questions to you about Ohio. So I recently started working in Ohio, and I have full intentions of hunting in Ohio. And Ohio,
the deer hunting here sucks.
What's that?
The deer hunting here sucks.
All right, crossing that one off. Then, son of a bitch. Well, the reality is a lot of people are flocking to Ohio. Based on what you just said to me, what is your opinion? What is your hot take on non-residents flocking to Ohio to deer hunt? Let's get right into it.
To be honest with you, man, I mean, I've met a lot of people on social media. Obviously, some I've never met in person, and A lot of them come here to Ohio, and I don't think it's a bad thing really. I think that Ohio as a state and like the the DNR, I think could be doing some things a little bit better to maybe help out with that. It's pretty easy to come here and hunt, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as out of state people coming here and hunting, I really don't think there's a problem with that. I mean, I joke about it. Obviously, I said the hunting here sucks, but it doesn't. It's great, unfortunately. But no, I don't see an issue with it.
Now, are you primarily a private or a public land guy?
A private, especially here in Ohio, yeah. I found in Indiana once, and I plan on venturing out to some other states hopefully this year. I'll be hunting public there, but here in Ohio, I'm pretty fortunate to have some private pieces that I can hunt.
That's awesome. So you're not really experiencing, out of state guys sort of intruding on you as you're hunting, which is nice, I suppose.
Well, two of the private pieces that I hunt are actually bordered by some pretty big state ground.
Hmm.
Um, so we have had a few issues in the past. We're getting people on trail cameras.
Oh, really?
Stolen, yeah. But I don't know that it's as much the out of staters as it is the Amish. I've had more Amish on camera in the last probably 5 years than I mean. Now I do have cameras on public as well. A lot of my deer spend the majority of their time on public,
Okay.
surprisingly enough. But yeah, Amish, man, they're
So
everywhere.
this may seem like a weird question, but I really don't know the answer. So I personally could recognize an Amish person in street clothes.
Mhm.
How can you tell that they're Amish in the woods?
They're still in those same clothes.
Oh, you're no shit.
No shit. I'll send you a picture. I'll go through my trail camera pictures and I'll send you one of a couple of them lugging this ladder stand in on public ground.
I'll be darned.
Hats and
Someone
all.
someone has mentioned to me that they use modern equipment to hunt. Like they'll
Yeah.
use brand new Hoyt bows and so on and so forth. So I sort of assumed that they were also wearing camo.
Now, some of the better bow shops actually in my area anyway or around here are in Amish country.
No
Um,
kid.
Now I've never ran into one personally when they were actually physically hunting.
Hmm.
That was prior to the hunting season that I have them on camera carrying stands in. So I guess they could wear camo. They just
Yeah.
maybe don't walk by my camera, but
Huh. I would have someone would have said to me, does an Amish guy wear camo or his I would have never suspected that they were still in their overalls. Wow. Okay. Well, that answers that. What are they doing that is noticeable or maybe off-putting to you? Like what is it about the Amish? Because you're not the first person that's mentioned this to me. I want to hear it from you though. Like, what are you seeing?
well, I'll tell you what, in my area, if I had to choose, you mentioned out of state hunters or Amish, I would take the out of state hunters.
Okay.
The Amish just
Okay.
they kill everything, man. You see them in them vans. We got a little convenience store here in town, and gun season you'll see them there, and they've got a back of one of them Amish vans loaded down with everything. I mean, they kill everything.
So I know, based on some construction work that we have done in Indiana, that they are exempt from things like child labor laws. In
Mhm.
how does how does it work as far as hunting? Are they held to the same standard and licensing regulations as a standard hunter as an Amish person or no?
I would assume. I guess I
Okay,
can't answer that. I don't know.
it's just
I,
interesting
I'm
because
assuming they are.
yeah, I would hope so. Because then we'd really have a problem. You talk about whether or not the ODNR is doing a good enough job with regulations and licensing and making it
Right.
more or less challenging for certain people. But if the Amish can just willy-nilly do whatever they want, I would say that's your biggest problem.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's not the case. So you mentioned going out of state to Indiana. When did you go to Indiana?
2022.
Okay. Did you go by yourself?
I didn't. I had a couple buddies that I went with. One of them had family in Indiana, so we was able to stay in their garage. Um, so we went down there. It was the first or second week in November. I forget the actual dates we was down there.
How did it go?
Went pretty well. It was all right. It wasn't what I expected. I guess I'm used to hunting. I mean, we got some hill country around here, I
Hmm.
guess, if you will. But primarily where I hunt, there's a decent amount of ag ground. And I guess I was expecting Indiana to be the same. We was in southern Indiana, and it was really, I mean, a lot of hills. The first 2 days I was there, I think I seen one deer. I didn't see anything the second day. So Wasn't a lot of deer. Didn't find a lot of deer sign until my third day. After we got a good bit of snow, and then I was able to kill a decent buck there in Indiana. So turned out all right.
Awesome. Okay. So Southern Indiana. So I've got a friend who hunts in Southern Indiana over by the Illinois border, and
Mhm.
but he said sort of similarly, low deer density, but the bucks that are there are high caliber bucks. Um,
Yeah.
and when you say hill country in where you're from, and you compare it to the hills that you saw in Indiana, what was the biggest difference
A lot steeper terrain in
in
Indiana.
in Indiana?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're so Ohio's more like rolling hills.
Primarily, especially around here where I hunt at. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So yeah, so I don't know anything. I mean, the only place I've been in Ohio, like in the state land or woods in southern Ohio, was like Hocking Hills.
Hmm.
So, I didn't do a ton of exploring. I'd love to
Right.
explore more, but so I don't have a lot of experience there. I've done a lot of scouting so far. So my market is Toledo and Cleveland. And
Hmm.
so I haven't had a lot of time to venture too far south. So I'm trying to hit like some spots up there, but it's pretty flat, man.
Right.
Up in that area. So I'm still learning my footings up there. Um, you mentioned trail cameras. Are you like when do you start putting your trail cameras out?
I it kind of depends, man. Life's been pretty busy for me lately. And I kind of been kind of changing the way that I do some of my preseason scouting a little bit. I'm still putting cameras out. I've had some out since probably late March. Put a few out during turkey season, and then just really whenever I get some free time, if I can leave work early,
Yeah.
get some time on the weekends. Just we get nice weekends here in the spring, man. We like doing a lot of stuff with our kids right now, so just whenever I can find time.
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect weather outside right now. It's not horribly hot and it's not cold anymore. So it's like, what can we cram in before
Yeah,
hunt season comes?
it was in the
Um,
low 50s this morning, man. It has me ready for fall.
yeah, I agree. It's I had to put this hoodie on this morning and it's supposed to get kind of cool again tonight. I was like, man, there's a certain smell. I think you know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about.
Oh yeah,
The smell at like 45 to 49 degrees or 50 degrees that it's a little damp outside, but it's cool. Like, man, it just gets my blood pumping.
oh yeah, I'm ready for it.
Yep. So do you run like traditional SD card cameras or are you running cell cams?
I've got some cell cameras,
Yeah.
but primarily SD card cameras. I had back in 2022. It was like I said, I had my first daughter then, um, and I also ended up killing my biggest deer then, and that was also the same year that I started implementing cell cameras,
Okay.
and it got me into a pretty nasty habit of being glued to my phone, and so I'm kind of getting away from them a little bit. Still have a few.
Yeah. I feel that, man. I had to adjust my thing to send my pictures in the middle of the night.
See, I'd have them sent to me right when I get to work in the morning.
That's it because I know that if I get up when I get up at first thing in the morning, no one else is awake. I can drink
Hmm.
my coffee. I can look at all my trail cam photos from the middle of the night, and I can move on with making breakfast in the morning.
Right.
You're right, dude. It's a habit. It's sort of
It's
it's the
it
social media.
definitely gets addicting.
Yeah, big time, big time. But I did do some scouting today when you reached out to me at like one something.
Uh-huh.
I was in the woods, so I did put another camera out today. Guilty as charged. I do love the camera game. Do you have trouble with people? I know you said the Amish, kind of traipse through. Maybe they don't. Since they don't use modern technology, are they even interested in cameras? Like if they see them, do you think
Uh, I mean, I don't know.
they don't mess
They
with?
saw mine and it
Oh, okay.
stayed there. Yeah, I mean, they're both looking up at the camera, but
Yeah.
yeah, they never messed with it. So
So tell me a little bit about that big buck that you shot that first year of getting your trail camera usage in there. Like what did that trail camera do for you? Um, or do you not really feel like it did anything to you or for you?
no, it did. So that buck that I killed in 22 here in Ohio, I killed him on my dad's property. He owns about 80 acres. Like I said, it's surrounded by state ground. Um, and we kind of have the same general areas where we always have deer moving through. So it's kind of always where the cameras are at. And he was a deer that I think I had on camera the year before. I can't say for sure. But I got a picture of him in August. I forget the exact date, and that's the first time I actually got a good picture of him. And I knew right then that was the deer I wanted to go after. And he showed up probably 2 or 3 days in a row. I mean, I didn't have a cell camera that I was getting him on, so I seen it about 2 weeks after the fact. But anyway, after that 2 or 3 day stretch, I didn't get him again until later on in September, prior to bow season. Opener came, he showed up. I can't remember if it was the first or second day of season. I wasn't able to go. We had plans that night, and I ended up putting a cell camera where that SD camera was, and got a picture of him, in close to shooting light. So anyhow, I kind of tried to. I was playing it too safe, honestly. I think having a deer of that caliber, I didn't want to mess things up, I guess. So anyway, I kind of moved some cameras around. I bought some more cell cameras. Got in a little bit closer to where I knew that we'd had deer in the past. We've had good bucks bet at. We've jumped them out of there. We've seen them come out of there, and I actually ended up accidentally bumping him. So the trail that I was walking on when I bumped him, I set a cell camera up on that, and ended up getting that buck on camera. It was either that day or the day after. And like I said, we went to Indiana that year, and my two buddies that I went to Indiana with, one of them killed their buck opening day of bow season, and then my other buddy killed his the first week of bow season. So the pressure was kind of on me. They wanted to do a little scouting trip to Indiana, and I kind of just said fuck it and went a little bit closer than I ever had to where he was at. Guess I grew a little bit of balls because I was kind of peer pressured into trying to make something happen, because I didn't want to leave and go hunt Indiana with him still running around, because it seemed like every time I wouldn't hunt, I would have him close to or around the area where I usually hunted at, close to shooting light. And yeah, I ended up getting him that night. It was October 9th, I think. So still within the first couple weeks of season.
And that's awesome. Do you feel like he was on a pretty well known, easily figured out pattern at that point? Like you knew exactly where he was coming from and going to?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not really. So I was getting pictures of him, like I said, for about probably 4 weeks. And I would get I'd say out of a 7-day week, probably 3 days, I would get pictures of him close enough to shooting light that I thought that if I was in there somewhere close, I'd be in the game. But it was weird. So I don't really name bucks ever. I just don't. I have like corny nicknames for him, I guess. But it seemed like every time I would get a west wind, he would come out of that area where I bumped him at. So my girlfriend, she nicknamed him West Wind. Anyway, it was a weeknight. I was actually on my way home back to my office from work. I was in another county, and she texted me. There was a west wind that day. Asked if I was going hunting. It was hot, like hotter than usual for that first part of October. So I checked the wind, and I was like, man, I really don't know. She ended up talking me into going. I did, and ended up killing him. So he was like, you asked if he was patternable. I guess to an extent he was. I don't know if he just liked that specific area on that with that west wind, just worked out for him or what. But so yeah.
So do you feel like that was his bed that he was coming out of every single time?
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe not the same bed, but it was definitely on the same ridge system. It was actually on public.
Oh, okay.
But the way that that piece was landlocked on public, in order to get to it, you would have to come up that drainage, and there's no way you could really get to him. So he felt safe there.
Yeah. Nice. That's awesome. And so at the time, so you said it's a pretty good buck. Look, what do you, was it your biggest buck? Was it one of your biggest bucks? Because you were saying he was like a deer of this caliber. And when you say something like that and you talk about not being willing to maybe screw it up at first, it's got to be something pretty special.
Yeah. He's still my biggest buck.
Oh, okay.
So
you know what he scored?
I had my taxidermist score him.
Yeah.
And I've never had a buck officially scored.
Okay.
He was low. I can't remember the exact number. I have to get on. I'm in that little bow hunting league thing, so that's the main reason why I had him taped. But he was like right around the 173 mark.
Wow, man, that's unreal. That's so awesome. That's you know, a lot of people get hung up on numbers, man, and I don't think before last year and maybe even half the way through last year, I wouldn't have been able to tell you what a 130 or 140 looked like on the hoof. Because I'd never ever taped anything. And so, shooting a nice deer and then having some sort of a reference, like, okay, this is what this looks like on the hoof, I think isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it's good for people to be able to judge a deer's approximate size and how it correlates to its approximate age so that you can be a good steward of the land. And again, everybody gets like, oh, who cares about the score? I kind of do.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, I get it.
Yeah, you might not care about the exact score, but you could at least say, hey, man, I know this is my biggest buck based on this information. I think that's good for everybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What's your take on like buck shaming?
I don't get it, I guess. So prior to in 2021, I killed my biggest buck at the time, which was just mid 130s, and I was pumped as hell. Prior to that, I'd killed probably numerous deer under 100. I think 100. I couldn't even tell you a number of what my biggest deer prior to that was because they're just all basket rack 8 points. I just shoot whatever gets you going. I mean,
it's refreshing to hear that.
Yeah, that's kind of my take on it.
I mean, because that's why we're doing it, right? I mean,
oh, absolutely.
The hunt, the chase, the chess match, the trying to outwit them in their home turf, like to have something that absolutely gets you totally pumped up is what it's all about. And
absolutely,
it's nice that you still have that. And I hope a lot of people that, get into this and shoot a great deer don't ever lose that, because that's what the magic is, man. That's all part of the adventure. I've talked to a couple guys on different podcasts about the adventure is what this is all about. And that's part of it. You gotta, your heart's gotta be racing every time.
No, absolutely. That's like I said, I haven't killed, honestly, really many good, like great deer, so up until these last few years. So I think you need to shoot whatever you're happy with, I guess.
What do you think changed?
The way I was hunting.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on that?
So growing up, I talked about hunting with my dad. We'd always hunt the same. I think we had probably 3 or 4 ladder stands set up around his property. He'd go to one, I'd go to one, and my grandpa would go to one, like every time. And we had feeders, and it was just weird. We wasn't seeing deer. We'd always say the deer were going nocturnal. My grandpa would quit hunting for several weeks until rut. Just wasn't happening, man. I actually, like I said, I killed several 2-year-old deer, which I loved. It's still tough for me to pass up a 2.5-year-old deer, to be honest with you. But no, I guess I kind of got away from that. To be honest with you, I was listening to a podcast back in probably 2020, and I'd actually taken a little bit of a break from deer hunting for no reason other than I just had some things going on in life where I just didn't hunt. But anyway, I was listening to a podcast. I couldn't tell you what one it was, but it was Cody Kelly was talking, and he was talking about hunting low. And I guess I was brought up with a more traditional hunting background, and I was working a extra duty detail for the sheriff's office on the interstate. So I had YouTube pulled up, watching the podcast, and seeing a dude. He was all tatted up, has gauges in his ears, long hair. Kind of changed my perspective of hunting in general. Prior to that, I didn't know who he was, but he was talking about hunting mobile and all this stuff, talking about bumping and dumping deer off their beds and hunting low. I like the hunting low part because I'll be honest with you, I'm not fond of heights. So that caught my attention. But anyway, I was just listening to it and I was like, man, this dude goes against everything that I've ever been told growing up hunting. And thought it was just crazy enough that it might work. And so I kind of tried starting it. I'm just now finally getting not comfortable with it, but I'm in my mind, I'm able to tell myself like, hey, dumbass, you're being way too safe with this. Like, make a move. Like I was told you about the one in 2022, I was kind of peer pressured into it. But I went into an area that we never, since I've hunted that piece of ground, have never even stepped foot on during hunting season. That's where he was at.
And so I imagine that with listening to Cody and, obviously with Lone Wolf Custom Gear and the hunting low and the mobile stuff, the lightweight stands, I imagine you probably started to dabble in some of that stuff.
Yeah. So in 2021, again, it was on my dad's piece of ground. I had probably 5 or 6 cameras up, had some decent bucks on camera. We had, like I said, our same ladder stands set up in probably the same spots they've always been. We just take them down, change straps, whatever. But I wanted to get into the mobile thing, but like I mentioned, not being fond of heights, I'm not super proud of that, but it's true. So I didn't want to. I didn't want to dive into. I was like, I'm not going to spend this money. So I obviously looked into Lone Wolf Custom Gear stands as I was listening to that podcast, and I was like, I cannot fathom spending that kind of money on a setup, especially if my bitch ass is too scared to get in a tree with it, right? So anyway, had decent deer on camera. I had one buck in particular that I was getting on camera that I would have liked to have killed. So I wasn't really mobile, but the Friday before season, I took it was like a big game tree stand and the attachable sticks, took them in, hung it up, checked my camera when I was there, and didn't have him on camera, I guess, per se. So anyway, that was the Friday before bow season. So that Saturday morning, didn't go hunting. Ended up hunting Saturday night. Couldn't really think of where to go. So I went to that stand that I just hung up. And the whole time I'm there, I'm thinking, I just put this stand in here. I was just in here last night. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. I ended up killing a nice, decent buck. Like I said, it was my biggest buck at the time out of that stand. And even though it wasn't really a mobile setup and I didn't, set my stand up and then hunt it right then and there, that was the most mobile, I guess, if you will, that I'd ever been. So that following year, I bought an XOP setup. It was a little bit cheaper, and ended up killing 2 deer with it and realized that it was heavy as hell. It's kind of a pain in the ass to lug around. I think it was the Air Raid. Still a good stand. I use it still for more permanent sets, I guess. But I finally, this past year, bought me a Lone Wolf Custom Gear setup. And
now you're pretty happy that you're not lugging around 35 pounds of stand.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you settle on?
I got a 1.0 at first. And then they were running that October sale. So I ended up getting a 0.75 with the mesh seat, and I took my mesh seat off the 7.5 and put it on my 1.0, and I plan on using my 0.75 with the 17-inch doubles this year.
Awesome. You loving it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so awesome. I think it's I know you say you weren't necessarily mobile, but it was more of a mobile mentality. Like you knew this is what I need to do to get this done. I need to be in this spot, which is against the grain from what I'm comfortable with. And you made a conscious decision based on information that you'd been gathering and hearing, and you probably subconsciously knew it was the right thing to do. And you took a risk, a calculated risk. And I think that was probably your light switch moment, wasn't it?
No, not really, because
Okay.
I honestly thought I was like, I'm lucky, right?
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I got lucky.
You figured it was luck.
Yeah, I truly did. I really, I don't think I had that like aha light switch moment until probably this past year, honestly.
Interesting. Tell me about that.
So even in 2022, I obviously used that XOP setup and killed that deer, but it's still was still so much different than stuff that I've done in the past and how I was raised hunting that, can you hear that fridge in the background, by the way?
Yeah, but it's fine. I can edit stuff out.
As long as it's not messing. Okay.
No.
Where I'm up in like this old hunting cabin. It's up on a hill. It's in the place I can get good Wi-Fi.
It looks cool wherever you're at. It looks cool. Like you're in a
it's
or something.
Old sandstone building. But anyway, so like I said, it was so different from what I was used to doing and how I was used to hunting, how I was raised hunting, that I just still couldn't shake it from my head that I'm like, it's luck, right?
Yeah.
Um, you get this deer on camera, you hunt enough in this particular area, lucky, whatever. So this year, I had, again, back on that 80-acre piece, I had a buck that I've had on camera for the last couple years. He'd always show up early season and then kind of disappear. So I wanted to go after him. But I also wanted to, I guess, expand from that 80-acre piece. So I have this other decent, I mean, it's a decent chunk of ground, bunch of ag land that I decided to start scouting, setting up more cameras. And I wanted to, I guess, have more options. Anyway, so I did that, found two other good, really good deer that I wanted to go after as well, I guess, as second and third options. Um, but anyway, I made a move on that buck that I'd talked about that I had some history with, and he actually ended up busting me on my probably fourth or fifth sit. I kind of guess I got a little bit too ballsy with it. Thought I could get in there to where he wouldn't win me. He came in, he ended up kind of circling. It's kind of tough to explain, but anyway, got winded. I was crushed, pissed. I had him at probably 40 yards, and we kind of locked eyes, and it was just my dad ended up. It's weird. He sent me a picture of it in his driveway. Yeah, it was. Anyway, so I was crushed. I was all pissed off. I went the next day. My girlfriend and I, we were actually in the process of building a house this past year. It was October 9th, I think it was. I was out here. I was heading out here to help them. They were working on the house. And I decided to stop by and check a couple trail cameras on the way. And when I did, I went in, noticed a couple more scrapes that were on this field edge that hadn't been there. And I checked this camera that I had on a mock scrape. And one of the good 10-point that I had on camera all summer long was hitting that mock scrape pretty regularly and pretty close to shooting light. Not in the daylight, but it was close. So I kind of thought about it, still pissed off about what happened the night before. Went, worked on the house. I was texting my girlfriend about this deer, and it was cold. It was nice. It was a nice day. I knew it was going to be a good evening. She told me to go for it. She said, just go hunting. I was like, all right. So I went home, got my stuff, went back in. I decided, I was like, I'm going to go. I'm getting this deer pretty close to shooting light. I had a fairly decent idea of where I thought he might be at. So I kind of went against my better judgment and what I thought I should do, and went in a good ways farther back in there. Ended up killing him on that sit. And I think that was kind of it took me, I guess, up until my fourth deer of doing something different. And I realized finally, it works.
Do you think there's some modesty there? Like, oh, surely I'm not that good. Surely this is just luck. Like, or do people? So the reason I ask that is this: I've had that conversation in my head, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I just lucked out, whatever,
Right.
I just lucked out. And then when you tell certain stories to certain people, sometimes it takes another individual to say, hey, listen, man, I hear you, but
Mm-hmm.
you did that. Like,
Right.
all of those things were you. Like, you think it was maybe some modesty at first, and then maybe after you started sharing these stories with people, they kind of like, hey, man, you did this.
I think it was, and confidence too. I mean, like I said, I thought everything was more luck, and there's, don't get me wrong, there's still definitely, when you're dealing
Always.
with these, there's always luck involved.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that, but I definitely was more confident this year, even going into it. Like every time I'd go out chasing that other buck, I'd tell my girlfriend every time I left, I was like, you'll be getting a call tonight. And I truly felt like I never seen, up until that deer busted me, I didn't see a deer. I think it was, like I said, it was my fourth or fifth sit, and I hadn't seen a deer, and I'm like, started second guessing myself.
Mm-hmm.
Then he was coming in exactly where if I couldn't have drawn it up any better, other than he winded me. So like I said, I was pretty pissed off. I'm like, man, that's what I get for, doing what I'm doing. So I kind of threw caution to the wind on that other buck. I'm like, you know what? If I screw it up, I screw it up. I've already messed up what I thought I wanted for this year. So, and it worked out. So,
Well, I think that's fantastic. I love hearing, like you said, although I sort of suspected your aha moment was one thing. I like hearing those aha moments because they're always a little bit different for everybody.
Mhm.
And the fact that it took you a good, 4 or 5 times, whatever, to sort of apply it and then be successful and then just accept that it was you. I love hearing that stuff, man. Those are great stories. Um, you know, do you feel like as you were growing into being a mobile hunter, you were assessing your gear? We're all there's so much gear these days. Like there is so much
Oh
gadgetry.
yeah.
uh, were you tweaking every sit? Were you making mental notes? Were you thinking about what it is that could elevate your game as you were growing into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned obviously that first time was with a big game tree stand, and I had, like I said, them 4 sticks. It was clanging around, and then I bought that XOP setup. And the first couple of times that XOP setup, the first time I was so pissed off in the woods because I got it in the mail. I was pumped, right? I threw it in a tree in the yard, and I was like, God, this is all right, but I'm uncomfortable as hell. Surely, whenever I'm in the moment hunting, like I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna figure it out. Terrible idea. Terrible idea. Um,
I'm laughing with you, not at
yeah,
you. I swear to
no.
God.
Even the night that I
Doesn't it?
killed that deer in 2022 with that, I still was. Um, it was bad. I mean, how that deer, I don't know. I don't know. But I started getting better with it when I went to Indiana, setting it up in the dark, taking it down, and also prior to going to Indiana, I was like, you got to figure something out with this system to get it to work, right?
Yeah.
So I got more comfortable with it. And then, like I mentioned, buying that Lone Wolf custom gear setup. And the main reason I did that was one, like I said, the whole reason that I even decided to try to do this whole thing was I was listening to the podcast with Cody and Andre. I think Andre was on it with him. I listened to a ton with him afterwards. And I was like, then you get on social media and you're seeing these guys with the Whitetail Addictions crew and all these guys that talk about, killing these mature bucks and using their mobile setups and this and that. And I'm like, I'm going to try it out, whatever. So I bought it. I thought I had my XOP setup dialed in, and it still is. But that Lone Wolf it's badass.
How everything's all integrated and
Mm-hmm.
very very well thought out. The whole
Yeah.
system itself is very well thought out.
But
I
you
couldn't.
mentioned tweaking and everything else.
Yeah.
I'm still, last night, I was still messing with stuff. Still kind of trying to decide what I want to do for this year. I'm honestly, I'm thinking about switching. I seen, I forget who it was, but somebody running two of the single steps with one double. Get a little bit more room on that seat shelf. I think that's a pretty nifty little idea. I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm always messing around with stuff.
Yeah, you did. You said once the kids go to bed or whatever, you
That's
go
my
out
free time.
and you out and tinker. Yeah.
Yep.
So so you're still trying to refine your setup. Like what are some of the things that you noticed you want to maybe manipulate or just kind of fine tune?
So I've been working a lot on trying to get it even quieter.
Yeah.
Because I'm still pretty careful with it. Like I know guys harp on trying to get up a tree in one trip.
Mhm.
I can't. Fuck that. I can't. I'm too much. By the time I get up there, man, I'm sweating. I'm wore out. I mean, it's too much of a pain in the ass for me. So I have a way I do it that works well for me. Um, and I'm able to stay quieter that way. I don't get as much. I don't get as sweaty. And I don't think I'd make nearly as much noise. Um, but with that, there's still certain things that do at times make noise. So I'm just trying to kind of work on stuff like that. I ended up getting one of them extended bow holders for the stand.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty slick. Just little stuff. Trying to figure out a pack I'm going to run this year. I think. So I used to carry in like a bunch of stuff when I go to these ladder stands that I never used. So I tried running that little waist pack, and it's just not quite big enough. It probably is, but I'm just in my mind I need more. I don't, but so I don't know. I'm trying to figure out some stuff. I don't know.
Are you shit, I just totally brain farted there and forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, self-filming. So you're self-filming, right?
Yes, trying to.
Tell me
um,
tell me a little bit about that because I'm also trying to.
So like I said, this past year, I didn't see a deer up until I got busted by that. I guess you could call it my number one target deer. And even then, I didn't get a chance to get any of that on film. So as far as filming this year, I had the day that I killed my buck. I had some does come in, filter out to the field. I got them on film, and I thought that I got my buck kill on film. I mean, I was pumped because I killed the deer, pumped because it all worked out, but even more pumped, like I got this shit on film, right? Like,
Yeah.
sweet. And it played out just how I thought it was going to. And it wasn't until I got down out of the tree. I even did like a little face shot of me saying like, I hope I got that shit on film or something like that. And I didn't. All I have is my dumbass on my camera, breathing hard, hearing the deer crash. So I used my phone for self filming.
Yeah.
I thought that would keep it simple enough to where I wouldn't mess up. I guess I was wrong with that. But so I'm still working on that, still trying to get that stuff, I guess, hammered out. But
Let me know if you figure it out. I will.
Right?
Dude, I'm telling you, September, I'm like, I got my gear organized. I'm going to film everything.
Mm-hmm.
And like 2 weeks of not seeing a fucking deer. And I'm like, fuck this camera shit. I'm staying in the truck. But like you, I have now stated, like, so with work, I'm able to get a new phone every 2 years. So I just got a new phone this year. So I'm saved my old phone, cleared it off. It is strictly for hunting this year. So hopefully I can just do that. I also got an Insta 360 cam. You know what? Are you familiar with those?
I'm familiar with the 360 cams. I've looked into them.
It's a 360 cam to save my ass when I don't get anything on the cell phone. If I could just remember to hit record on that thing, maybe it will.
Don't they have like a little remote or something? Some of those have.
Ooh, I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
I think I've seen something like that. Would be nice because, like I said, me trying to fumble, get my camera in position with my phone on my camera arm, and then remembering to press the red record button.
Yeah,
and it's always red on an. I use an iPhone.
Yeah, me too.
And it's red no matter what. It just changes. Like I don't know.
What made you want to get into self filming?
Man, I don't know. I guess like I keep mentioning this podcast and these people that kind of I guess inspired me to change the way I hunt and watching their videos and as growing up, I loved hunting. I still love hunting, but I'd watch hunting shows all the time. And it was always the same shit. Like you got a camera guy in a tree, they're sitting on the edge of a food plot, beautiful food plot, big deer comes in, they shoot it and kill it, right? And then I learned after trying to do what they're doing that it's pretty much bullshit. And then you see these guys on YouTube that are, killing down freaking slobs of deer and getting it on film. And then you find out it's filmed with an iPhone and this and that. And I'm like, some cool shit. And I'd like to do it. So that's my goal this year. This year I want to get I'd like to get my buck kill on camera if I get an opportunity at one. But I guess if I have an opportunity at a buck that I want to kill and it's get him on camera and possibly kill him or just I'm killing him. I'm not worrying about the camera. But
I love it so much because I feel that deep within my soul. As much as I look back on last year and think, man, I'm bummed I chose not to bring my camera that day. I would have loved to be able to relive that today. Like today, I would love to watch that video, but I can't.
Right.
That's sort of my driving factor is I want to relive these hunts as vividly as possible for the rest of my life and then share with my family who I'm also trying to encourage my kids to get into the outdoors. I would like them to be able to say at some point when I'm 90, my kid could be like, this is what dad did when he was young and relatively cool. It'd be interesting to see that stuff.
And as my oldest daughter, I mean, like I said, she just turned 2 in April. But every time she sees a deer or a buck, she points at it, says daddy's buck. We'll sit on the recliner. She loves watching hunting shows with me. Real hunting shows, not the shit that I grew up watching. And I guess I think it'd be cool to have her sit down and her see me and doing what I like to do. And me actually being the one hunting. So
absolutely.
there's a lot of different reasons why I'd like to do it.
Yeah. Well, good. I hope it works out for you. I look forward to following along. Um, you know, you um dude, I keep brain farting out here because I'm looking at notes in front of me and then I'm trying to remember something you just said. Content when you were younger, as you were growing up, consuming hunting content, where were you getting it?
The Outdoor Channel or OLN or the Pursuit Channel,
Any
all the ones on
DVDs,
TV.
VHS, anything like that?
Yeah, can't remember what I had some VHS tapes. I forget. Ralph and Vicky. That sound familiar?
I don't know. So that here's what's interesting. So I am 11 years older than you.
Okay.
And growing up, I didn't grow up in a hunting family at all.
Okay.
Watch hunting at all.
Mhm.
Not until 2021, after I got hurt, I was laying down recovering, and I was like, "Oh shit, there's a lot of hunting shows on YouTube here." Uh,
Yeah. I didn't discover the YouTube hunting channels. Um, I guess not until recently. I mean, it's been a little while, but even then, like the do-it-yourself hunting videos are like
yeah,
I love scrolling through YouTube and finding dudes that I've never even heard of.
me
They're
too.
laying out some pretty badass content, killing some nice deer. I don't know.
Yeah, I always find it interesting what people were consuming at what age. Like I have a buddy, there's a kid on my son's hockey team whose dad is my relative age. He would ride his bicycle to the VHS store as a kid and like rent a hunting tape and then come back like the next day and rent another hunting tape. So he was like renting,
Mhm.
for lack of a better explanation, like at Blockbuster or Family Video or whatever. And I didn't know if you had a similar experience growing up.
No, there's like I said on TV. There was a lot of hunting shows that was aired, and like I said, I did have some VHS tapes and some DVDs and stuff. But that's pretty much it.
That's all right. I feel like I watched more fishing as a kid. Now that I think about it, there's an old man with a Tennessee hat on in my memory. I can't remember what his name was, but anyway, I feel like I watched fishing as a kid, not hunting. Um,
Yeah,
do you
never been into fishing.
know?
I
Do
don't
you
have
do,
the patience.
do you do any other type of outdoor activities other than whitetail hunting?
Uh, I try to shed hunt.
I mean, try.
Yeah,
Do you struggle?
I do.
Really?
I do. Yeah, I don't.
Do you long to find that white gold, that sweet, sweet white gold that everybody looks for?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't have a ton of time for me to get out and do. I try to keep. I guess I can't think of a good way to put this. I try to save as much of my time to where I can go and say, "Hey, do you mind if I go hunting tonight?" Or do you mind? I try to keep that all for hunting season so that when I do have the right wind or I do have a good cold front, that I can just be like, "Hey, you mind if I hunt tonight?" And she'll be like, "Sure."
Yeah.
So whenever I do go shed hunting, it's usually more of a. I guess I get into. I tend to scout more.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I've never had, I guess, an eye for it. I went with my dad this past year. We was just walking, and I walked over too. Like that, he ended up
Like
finding. So
stepped over them?
not stepped over him.
Oh,
No, not that bad. But I mean, close enough that I should have seen him.
yeah,
Uh,
that's funny.
yeah. So I don't know. I must have an eye for it, I guess.
I love finding them, but I did not have very much success this year. Um, I but like you, I really focused a lot on scouting. Like when I was in the woods,
Hmm.
you know, it was more of a priority to me to learn the sign that I was seeing. I was looking for scrapes and rubs and bedding and trails and so on and so forth. And if I were to find a shed, great. Um,
Right.
when you go scouting, what do you look for primarily to find the most success?
So like I said, I start off. I mentioned that 80-acre piece I have. I don't do a lot of scouting there anymore. I've hunted it for several years now. It doesn't really change a whole lot. But I mentioned going to some new pieces that I hunt. That's like I said, there's a lot of acreage here, and I don't have much time. So I'm not. I hear guys talking about putting hundreds of miles on their boots, and you got to do this, or they're doing this when they're scouting. I don't have time to do that shit. Like I said, I focus primarily all of my time that I have my free time when it's not hunting season with my kids and my family. But I do have when they go to bed, right? So I do a lot of e-scouting. I'll drop pins in areas that I want to scout. um, and then whenever I get a chance, I'll go to those areas, see what kind of sign I'm finding. Um, I never really got into, I guess we talked about me growing up hunting, watching the traditional hunting shows. I'd find scrapes and not think anything of them. Now I'm getting more into mock scrapes, finding existing scrapes and trying to enhance them. My cameras primarily now that I run are either on creek crossings, ditch crossings, or scrapes. So that's kind of what I'm doing now.
I like that. I like that you mentioned creek crossings because I think it's something that I have historically overlooked. Are you utilizing that information that you just shared right there based on like your historical data? Like you just know based on experience that these have been more fruitful for you?
No. Um, so, like I said, this past year, so it had been end of 22 into 23, the end of 2022 into the 2023 year. I just started kind of getting on this new piece that I just killed my buck on this year or this past year. So prior to that, I never really hear the guys always talked about historical camera data and this and that. I
Mhm.
had it on the 80-acre piece and when I say historical data, it was, this deer showed up, was on this ground this year or last year. But as far as I'm just now starting to kind of try to gain some historical data.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm trying to learn that via podcast and via trial and error.
Okay.
Um, and with that, I've I've noticed that last year I had some success on some creek crossings, and the main reason I put a camera there was because I seen it's the easiest place for me anyway to find a good track, right? So if I find a good track, I'm going to set a camera up on that trail, and I just happen to find them on these creek crossings, ditches, and things like that.
Well, I like that because I think I've heard someone say this exact phrase frequently. Don't try to boil the ocean. Don't
Mhm.
try to take all of the information at once and figure it all out. That is such an obvious statement. The easiest place for me to find a good track is in the mud. No, right? But
Right.
that's like how many times have I just walked right? I've walked over a damn creek crossing with deer tracks in it today. And
Right.
I think to myself, did I even look at the tracks? I don't remember because I was looking for a rub line in and out of bedding and a
Mhm.
community scrape. But I'm in my own head and I literally know that I walked through a swamp today with tracks in it. Why the hell did I not take note of tracks? I think
Mhm.
that's really important for people to hear is think of the obvious stuff first, right?
Mhm.
Find a big damn track in the soft ass mud,
Mhm.
anything that's wet. So
Right.
I think that's fantastic. And I really wish that I could take my own advice or other that I talk to on here and implement it, but I'm in my own damn head too much. And like you said, I have very limited time. I tried to squeeze a shitload into 2 hours today, and I was just kind of just moving too fast. But you
No,
know,
I get it.
yeah, um, it's just the way it is, man. With when you're working full time and you got 3 kids and a busy schedule, and you only get a little bit. Like I had a meltdown today. I'll
Mhm.
just say it. I
Yep.
pouted and kicked and screamed, and I had to leave my office and go for a walk in the woods because I was having a rough day. So
You'll have days like that.
that's why I only had 2 hours. Are you somebody who ever and maybe romanticizes or thinks about leasing at all anywhere?
I don't just because I'm pretty fortunate. So this piece that I mentioned that I grew up hunting on my dad's 80 acres. My stepdad, my stepdad's a farmer. Him and his family own a pretty big farm. They lease a lot of farming ground. They have full rights to, that we have access to hunt. So I guess I don't per se lease it, but I have the ability to hunt it.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm not in a position to where I guess I don't have to lease land. Fortunately, um, out of state, I don't have the time to go out of state to scout as it is, let alone to try to scout and get permission pieces
Yeah.
down the road. I guess it's definitely something I'd love to try to do, but I don't know, man. Lease prices are getting driven up, and I don't know.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at is do you again, I don't know you at all. I don't know if you listen to people talk about this or not, but there's a lot of discussion about what leasing prices specifically or leasing in general is doing to the sport, to the pastime of hunting. And in your opinion, do you feel like hunting is really becoming a rich man's game?
So I listen to podcasts a lot because I'm in my
Okay.
cruiser a lot. And I like to listen to podcasts, and I hear that a lot of time people are talking about it's going to become a rich man sport. Um, Whatever. I don't think so. It might, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of ground around us that's leased by guys,
Mhm.
out of state hunters and in state hunters. um, but there's still, I mean, I mentioned the ground that this farm that I'm hunting now, it's surrounded by a good bit of state ground. And I have a decent amount of cameras on that state ground because last year, for some reason, I wanted to hunt public land. I don't know why, if I thought I had to prove something or what. But anyway, I had cameras on it. I scouted a decent amount. I'd even scout hunting pressure on it. The state ground near me, it's not really hammered. Like, I mean, there is some parts of it that is, but
Yeah.
I think there's still a lot of overlooked spots. And I don't know. I guess it might become a rich man's sport eventually, maybe. But
I think there's a piece of it which is the chase for inches
mhm.
is what's truthfully becoming a rich man's game. So those people who are out there seeking the 200-inch buck, because like you said, there's plenty of state land just about wherever you go. Like I've got thousands and thousands of acres around me of state land, and yes, I see signs of human intrusion in there a lot, but there are so many fucking deer around my house that
Mhm.
people are not shooting enough deer. They're shooting enough does. So the reality is, I think it's the seeking of the trophy whitetail that is
Right.
really the rich man's game, and that will probably always be that way.
Yeah, and I think it kind of always was.
I think
I mean,
so too.
it's probably worse now. I think a lot of times too, guys, myself included, with social media now, everything is on social media at your disposal. And
Yeah,
I think that, I mean, there's been guys leasing ground, even around me, for years, for as long as I can remember.
absolutely.
Now, are the prices getting higher? Yeah, but so is everything else.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It might get that way. Might not. I hope it doesn't. But
Do you what do you hear through the grapevine as far as permission opportunities near you? Do you know people who are still able to get permission?
yeah, my buddies and I got permission on a piece a couple years ago. This old lady didn't let anybody hunt. Um, at all. Nobody really hunted it. Um, they went we got permission on it. They went and did some things for her. We didn't pay to hunt on the ground. Just and then after she allowed them to hunt and us to be on there and everything else, because I never hunted there. Um, she ended up letting more people hunt
Oh
for
wow.
free. Yeah, and I've got other guys I talk to that they don't own ground. Their family doesn't own ground, and they've got permission pieces that they hunt that they're not either not paying for or not paying. I mean, outrageous prices for.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I think it's an odds game. Like you got to knock on a bunch of doors.
Yeah,
It's
and there's guys out there. I mean, I don't know if they're paying for leases or if they're just getting permission, but and there's guys all over Instagram sending out letters. I've never even thought of doing that, but
I've sent out a
um,
bunch.
yeah,
I got permission in Illinois to access some state land through a private farm, and that's what afforded me my opportunity last year to shoot my big deer.
Mhm.
And I've mailed out probably 30 this year, with no responses. But I think that's just part of it.
Yeah,
I think you just got to be willing to be open and honest in your letters and take that risk. And hell, it may work, it may not. All you need is one person to
right.
say sure. Um,
And they're out there. There's
yeah,
people there's ground that's untouched that people either don't hunt or that they're letting people hunt. I mean,
yeah,
there's a property that borders where I'm hunting right now that I mean they let anybody and their brother come in and hunt. Too much helps me out.
Well,
But
good. So I have some things that I wrote down that I have noticed while I've been perusing YouTube videos, guys hunting videos, and maybe there's some things that I liked or didn't like, but I wanted to get your take on blaming your gear. So, for example, um, like I was watching this video of a guy who went to draw back in his release, let go prematurely, and two arrows just kind of like pew just fell off. Two. And
uh,
he turned to the camera and he was like, my stupid release doesn't work. And I thought to myself, when was the last time you drew your bow back? And so are you somebody who practices throughout the season and goes into hunting season with full confidence in everything you have as working as it should? Or are you just kind of like winging it?
I don't shoot
Be
my bow as much.
honest. Be
I don't
honest.
shoot my bow as much as I should. I mentioned the whole time thing. This time of year is great. I just shot last night. So any chance once the girls go to bed that I don't have, chores to do around the house or, honeydew lists like that, and I can go out and tinker with stuff and it's still daylight, I'll try to shoot. I probably shoot a couple times a week starting around this time of year. Um, I need to shoot more, but I don't, I don't know if it's the way that I'm choosing my setups now. Or I haven't had to shoot a deer over 20 yards recently. So
Beautiful thing.
yeah, I'm confident 30 yards and in. Um, I wouldn't take a shot on a deer right now. Past probably 40 yards would be a stretch for me.
Yeah. I feel that. I feel that. Do you set up your stand on a tree or a telephone pole or anything in the before season, or is it just kind of
I will. I have. I'm not a guy that is going to go out and set up my tree stand every night when I shoot for a
oh
month
yeah,
or two prior to season. But I do like the week before season. I'll go out a couple nights just to make sure all my shit's in order.
right.
I've done everything. So as far as my gear goes, I don't have a whole lot of gear really. But as far as my tree stand and my sticks and my bow,
Mhm.
I'm confident with it when I go out.
Nice. Yeah, that's something I'm trying to get my brother to. I talked my brother into being a mobile hunter within the last couple of years. He went from not hunting at all to like shooting a big buck his first year ever to being a mobile hunter now. And he went to Kansas with me last year. Like, homeboy is bought in.
Right.
I love it, but I don't think he really understood what I was talking about when I was like, listen, man, take that XOP,
Mm-hmm.
get around for a little while, and then set it up in a
Yeah.
tree because there's nothing more miserable than the first time you ever get your stuff out in the dark and try to climb a tree that you've never seen in your life.
I
Uh,
get it.
so
I've
I
been
would
there.
I would just encourage people like, man, don't get to that point where you're like, I had no idea my release didn't work, or I knocked my sight off like halfway to my tree and I never even looked at my bow. There's a there's a responsibility, and this is me preaching. God damn it, I'm gonna get on my soapbox here. We have a responsibility to make sure that the gear that we take in the woods with us,
Mm-hmm.
best we can tell, is correctly set up and working correctly to take the animal's life as efficiently as possible. And it
No,
kind of it rubbed me the wrong way when the dude was like, my release doesn't work.
right. Now,
Boy,
freak things happen. I get it, but yeah, that shouldn't be.
you should know. Like, do you get in your tree stand and you draw back and just kind of like,
I do when I first get in my tree. The first thing I do before I knock an arrow, I'll draw, or before I get everything set up completely, I'll knock an arrow before I put it on my little bow holder. I'll draw back, move around, make sure I don't need to move anything out of my way,
yeah,
and
that's it right there. That's it right there. That one little thing right there would have saved that dude
mm-hmm.
knowing that his release didn't work on a
Right.
fucking buck of a lifetime. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you taking some time to chat with me this evening. I enjoyed getting to know you. I look forward to following along. Do you have any big plans for this year other than Ohio?
Yeah. So my daughter, I've mentioned her birthday is September 2nd, my youngest daughter. So this year, Kentucky opener falls the weekend after her birthday. Um, Now, I guess with the Labor Day weekend might throw off my plans a little bit, but I do plan on trying to make it to Kentucky for the opener. Maybe not Saturday, depending on what the plans are for her birthday party. But I'm going to try to get to Kentucky this year. That's one place I've always wanted to try to hunt. So I'm going to try to get to Kentucky, and I'm going to go back to Indiana this year too, as long as things go as planned in Ohio.
Are you longing for a velvet buck or just getting out there early?
And I'm itching to get in a tree now, so a lot of
Oh,
it's just
okay.
getting out there early.
Yeah,
But a velvet buck is definitely on my bucket list.
very
One
cool.
one of these days, I'd like. Now, I'm afraid that this year, with it not coming in until the 7th, I believe it is, if I'm remembering right. I don't know if it'll be too late or not. I know bucks around here tends to be around the time when they're shedding their velvet.
Absolutely.
Um, but I'm still going to try to make it down there.
Cool. Well, I love it. Same spot in Indiana?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not. I don't know. I, I didn't find, man, I walked a decent amount that second and third day, and it wasn't until the third day that I even really found the first buck sign. And I wasn't super impressed with it. I
Okay.
don't know if it was the terrain, the lack of sign, the lack of deer. I killed a decent deer there, and I've heard of other nice deer that was in the area, but I might try to venture somewhere else.
I'm not trying to persuade you at all. I will tell you, and believe me, I'm just an idiot. So I will tell you that had I not found the sheds to the buck that I killed last year, there was not enough sign in the part of the state land in Illinois that I hunted to make me stay there.
Really?
I've never found a community scrape. I've never found a rub line. Had I not found those sheds, I don't think I would have put in the effort.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I'm very thankful that I did, but I don't know what it is, man. Those bucks, and there's a lot of them. Like there's bucks whose sheds I didn't find that I was getting on camera, but they're not laying down. They're hitting a scrape, and I've refreshed the scrape a couple times. And they're hitting it, but they're not really laying it down like you see about on YouTube that these guys are finding. So for whatever that's worth, man, you never know.
I get it. I
Uh,
might go back and stay. It was nice having a garage to stay in. Like I said, we was there in November, so it was kind of cold.
yeah,
So it saved us money on a hotel and saved me from having to sleep in my SUV. So there's that, I guess.
yeah, that's the thing, man. Truck camping is all the rage now.
Until it's not.
Until I'm fucking mad and it's 10, I'm like, you know what? $150 for a room. I don't even care.
Yep.
Well, listen, Cody, man, I appreciate you coming on tonight. I know you're a father with young kids and a busy schedule, and I appreciate you taking some time to chat with me.
No, man. Thanks for reaching out. I enjoyed talking to you.
Oh, me too, man. I enjoyed getting to know you. I look forward to following along on all your adventures and keep in touch. And for all of those of you who are sticking around to the end of this podcast, thank you for listening. We will catch you on the next one.